Namaste, everyone. This is going to be a mudra educational experience. We're going to do Kundalini yoga, and we are going to work with the brain using mudras. And the mudras I have selected for this particular healing session can be found in this mudra booklet / deck. So we're working with the mudra because the mudra has to do with the balancing of the tattvas and the 5 elements that we all have, right? We call earth, fire, wind, water, ethereal, right? And we're all connected to that. That's what makes us well-rounded, what makes us dynamic. So this particular Kundalini yoga, we're going to be using mudras for manifestation and alchemy. So we're going to transmute energy in the body into the golden, we can call it the golden Buddha, right? We're going to transmute energy into that golden Buddha so we can become more magnetic to this planet, to the solar system, to this galaxy. And we're going to use this Kundalini yoga to really enhance our aura through the mudra. We're really going to carve out more nuances in the brain that give us more ingenuity, inventiveness, right? A greater perspective or a range of perspective. And also we're going to refine the creative mind. We're going to refine the creative mind. And I see mudras as, it seems very simple when you do it, right? When you have Gyan mudra, right? It seems very, very simple. But it does amazing things for the creative mind. When I hold these particular mudras, I can go so deep where I come out of it and I am like completely recalibrated in my brain. Like I'm like completely different in my creative mind, in the way that I perceive, in the way my perspective it expands. So these mudras we're working with the expansion of the mind. So I see we're tapping into that Jupiter frequency through these mudras that are really going to work with the brain and also work with the creative energy. Work with the creative energy in the physical vitality, but also in the pathway, the neurology, the physiology of you, right? The mind-body connection. So how this can help you, we can look at it from a perspective of helping you with concentration, helping you with your meditative mind, helping you with contemplation. It can even help you with self-psychology. It can even help you with that in refinement of the creative mind. You have more of a learner's mind. So that can help you, like let's say you're in school, right? You are in school, you're taking a math class, you're taking a biology class. It can help your mind to be able to grasp complex concepts, which is very much what we're headed into with Homo sapien 2.0, right? Is when we think of the SpaceX, right, with pioneering this whole this whole drive towards creating a colony on Mars, that is a complex concept that has broken the barrier of many previous limitations within the human mind when it comes to space travel, when it comes to rockets, when it comes to human beings being able to colonize on Mars, right? So this technology age is pressuring the mind. And with each new generation that's coming in, these new generations that are coming in, we think about the Gen Z, the Gen Y, they're able to grasp complex concepts that maybe other older generations, they're kind of bewildered by that, right? By these ideas or by this inventiveness or this innovative sort of mind that these younger generations just have naturally. Because the technology age in many ways is kind of like mudras, right? Mudras is like an ancient way of activating the power of the mind and the multidimensional mind, right? Our technology age is basically kind of current 21st century sort of mudras when it comes to how it recalibrates the mind, and your mind is constantly being upgraded by all the new information that's coming out. So mudra is a way for us to vibrate the cosmos, right? Called the Golden Buddha. When you think of the Golden Buddha, you think of the Golden Buddha as I'm vibrating the cosmos. That's kind of the statement. I vibrate the cosmos, right? And when you're holding these particular mudras, especially these mudras, again, that we're going to work with are, again, you're harnessing your ability to deal with complex concepts, right? Complex concepts, because these mudras, some of them are a little bit complex in the way it can seem very simple, but when you're holding it and your brain needs to calibrate to something probably you've never done, right, or you've done for a period of time in a sort of state of concentration, right, or meditative mind, you're definitely going to experience something, as I have, when it comes to your brain, right? Your brain is going to have to move in a new way, and that's going to support agility, right? Agility. And that's when we think about the future of this, Homo sapien 2.0, right, type of projection, there's a lot about problem solving. When we think of, SpaceX, it's a lot about problem solving. And problem solving has to do a lot with the agility of the mind to be able to perceive a range of perspective. And a lot of us, we have this program of judgment, older generation, younger generation, and all this kind of judgment that really blocks the flow of inventiveness and ingenuity, because all of these opinions and all these perspectives, they're complex concepts that may rub against us in a certain way, may create friction within us, right, in our current understanding, our current belief system. But all of that, when we tap into the creative mind, we were really functioning from a more dynamic understanding, right? And that gives us this sort of high imagination where we can be in these perspectives or in sort of conversation with these perspectives that create this friction, right? That even in the mind, it creates this sort of, could say trigger, right? Like you're triggering something in the mind that may create something like a judgment. Oh, that's not possible, or oh, what is that, or whoa, right? But when you really work again with the mudra, you're working with the creative mind. That's about the higher imagination. That's about new possibilities. Regardless if it's right or it's wrong, you're tapping into new possibilities. And that is about your intuitive broadness, right? Your intuitive broadness. And when we think of like SpaceX and Elon Musk, he's tapping into an intuitive broadness that he's probably had since he was, my age, right? A very young man, right? And the intuitive broadness is able to connect with a wide range of perspective, able to be rubbed up in the mind, have that friction in the mind, and able to think of the new possibility, even if these things are right calculations, wrong calculations. It's all about the broadness of the imagination that really brings about this creative epiphany is what I want to talk about. The creative epiphany that Newton had, Einstein had, Tesla had. This I call a creative epiphany, right? Da Vinci had, and all of these individuals I'm talking about, all of them have this broadness of imagination where, you know, a lot of these individuals failed. A lot of them were inaccurate, incorrect, just frankly wrong, right? But they allowed that friction to be a spark, right? A spark that would lead to a greater understanding. And we gain an understanding through experience. It's called like trial and error. That's how we gain experience. And that's how we gain the spark, right? That's how we start to get the sort of dynamic understanding, because this, you know, the dynamic understanding does not really come from my belief versus your belief. It's more so of that intermingling that creates that sort of dynamic range. But as long as we're at this sort of, I'm right, you're wrong, that kind of crusade type of mentality, right? I'm right, no, you're wrong, and, you know, play that kind of out with each other, we're never really going to have the cohesion that leads to new possibility, that leads to a creative epiphany, right? So we're going to work on that kind of creative epiphany that we think of Tesla and Da Vinci and Einstein has had, with their broadness of imagination, that, and many of these individuals were very futurists, right? You know, most of these individuals with this creative broadness, even with Elon Musk, are very much futurists, even Yogi Bhajan, futurists. So they're dealing with complex concepts that are, you can say, way beyond their years, right? But they're able to grasp these complex concepts because they have this sort of agility in the mind that is able to tap into new possibilities without getting bound, right? It's called the trial and the error. It's called the experience. Gives you understanding, gives you broadness, gives you dimension of it, right? And that's, as human beings, if we look at it from our own perspective, as humans, that's how we gain wisdom. When you think of Shiva, for example, you know, Shiva, we can see, let's say Shiva has 12 arms, right? We'll say 12, right? 12 is a very, you know, a magical number, right? 12 arms. And in each arm, the Shiva is holding a different mudra. And each mudra represents accessing a different facet of the mind, or different stream of consciousness. And supposedly, based on ancient astronaut theory, sort of documentaries, that supposedly there are intelligent beings in this universe that can stream can basically access 7 streams of thought simultaneously. As human beings, that's like watching 7 TV shows all at once. Like a TV side by side, like 7 TVs all going out at once, and being able to receive that much information. We can barely even, we get mental collapse just by watching Instagram, let alone watching 7 streams of thought. But supposedly these kind of ETs, can have that sort of capacity to literally sit, like, almost like watching 7 different shows all at once, and be able to retain information from all of that, right? So that's what I call about dynamic range. That's what I call about being multidimensional. And mudra with Shakti, so Shakti can hold these different mudras, like 12 arms, right? And these different mudras, again, accessing a stream of consciousness. Each mudra has its own stream of consciousness, right? Its own sort of the facet of the mind that you're working with, different points in the mind, right? Nuances, different points, different nuances in the brain. And that represents the experience that leads to a broad sort of deep understanding. So when I see about the right and the wrong, and calculations not being off, and failure, and that's not right, a lot of these people I've mentioned, like Da Vinci and Tesla, they had the broadness of imagination that was able to recalibrate, reconfigure with the data that they received. Either it was a fail attempt, that gives you data, right? Even when you're manifesting as a human being, whatever it is that you're doing or not doing, or did do and didn't work, whatever it is, it's giving you data, right? That you store in your information body, in your memory body when it comes to manifestation. And your sort of sensation of it, right? Your intuitive kind of touch in that, or experience of that, gives you an understanding, right? And this is something that we cultivate in multiple incarnations. And the more that we do have the agility of the mind, like Tesla, the more we're able to move through, right? And to have that creative epiphany. And I'm telling you, a lot of that creative epiphany is being able to problem solve, and having that agility of the mind. That's what a creative epiphany, I see it as, is you have this agility of the mind, but you also have this problem solving, right? And these mudras, since they activate, we can say, in higher intelligence, because higher intelligence to me is creativity that is dynamic, multi-dynamic is what I'm seeing, multidimensional. That's what I see as higher intelligence, right? When we think of higher intelligence as the AI, right, artificial intelligence, we think of these robots being able to, what are they? Multidimensional, right? In the way that they function, right? When we think of the ET who can literally, access 7 streams of thought simultaneously, multidimensional. And when we think of Shakti, in the lineage of Shakti, we think of being multidimensional and harnessing that. And in the sort of esoterics, we call it the Asachik. We can call it the Asachik, the Asachik memory, right? Like the Da Vinci body or the Merkaba, right? We see it as the Asachik memory, right? Just like a star has a memory of its death, its birth, has memory of where memory of how it can come into form, right? How a star come to be, right? How the solar system was created around the sun, how this galaxy was created. It all is storing memory, right? That memory. And we can call it like singularity, the memory, right? And that memory body can also tap into again, this whole universe, because one sun is connected to, the Big Bang. So it has memory of even, long, right, the Big Bang we can think of, right? So that's what we're talking about with the mind, and the creative mind being your multidimensional sort of energy that you can access to give you agility, to give you problem solving. Because a lot of the victory of the mind is about dealing with complex concepts, and complex concepts. How I kind of sort of envision it is being able to use your many sensor systems, because again, when you're dealing with complex concepts, like let's say for example, we're getting some sort of transmission from some other planet, right? Some other planet that's outside of this solar system, right? That's in this galaxy but just not in our solar system, and it's coming through the transmission is coming through in a way, as human beings, we don't have the sensor our sensor system cannot deal, or doesn't know how to transcribe this particular transmission. Let's say it's in transmission that goes beyond Morse code, right, type of transmission, or it goes beyond what we think of like sound or light. So that complex concept will demand of us to go access different sensor systems, because we have multiple, right? We can think of the intuitive, we can think of the primal, we can think of the intellectual, the emotional, we can think of the auric, right, which has to do with sound and the sound resonance. We can think of the creative mind, which has to do with like sacred geometry, which is shapes and patterns and forms. right? So in that sort of complex concepts, that's why I really value education for regardless of your 85 or 8, right? Because it helps you to really access your different sensor systems. Because when if we were to go to space and all this stuff, and when we are dealing with complex information that is beyond our sort of common mind, I like to say, right? We're going to have to activate, and we're going to have to use these sensor systems that a lot of us frankly don't really tap into because we don't need to. And mudra belongs to basically an ancient civilization. We think of Shakti lineage, an ancient civilization. Even when we go to Sumerian civilization, we think of the Sumerians, the tapping into, even before that, when we think of, going to ancient Egypt, even before a history textbook type of sort of Egyptologist view of our history, they're dealing with complex symbolism, complex, when we even think of like when we think of complex imagery, complex storytelling, right? And they're working with different sensor systems that we as human beings don't necessarily need until we become, like you say, intergalactic, and we're dealing with light, and we're dealing with sound, and we're dealing with a different spectrum of sound, a different spectrum of light, right? And like the sun, for example, has memory of these sensor systems. It can sort of receive information and store in the different sensor systems, like for example, primal energy, emotional, mental, the auric energy, right? We all have this kind of information that we can sense using these different systems that are all in this kind of cohesion together, right? That kind of, when we think of all of these things infusing together, we call it the 10th gate, or the Merkaba. And basically you become a white sun, right? And it's basically you have an aura, you have a 10th gate in the esoterics, and basically it's saying that's your spaceship, right? And in that spaceship you're able to transcribe multiple sort of rhythms of creative information, right? So working with these mudras, we're working with this ancient civilization. We can call Atlantis or Lemuria, these type of things, but we're working in a way that's more intergalactic with the future that we're going in, where we're looking on how we can deal with complex concepts, because that really represents our expansion, and that's how we really can vibrate the cosmos and see self and other, right? It's not just about being able to retain information or being able to problem solve. It's also about being able to see self and other, right? Because our human experience, our human life, we're dealing with complex concepts all the time. When it comes to our childhood, why was I abused? Why are these, why is this? What is that? Right? Why do I feel this way? Or who am I? Or what's my life purpose? Like, all of these to us seem like complex concepts. And we're not even talking about like space travel, right? We're just talking about human emotion, right? And a lot of times when it comes to mudra and harnessing that meditative mind, is because it gets into the neocortex, the cerebral energy, this neocortex, the cerebral, and what it does is you get to awaken these different central systems, right? When you work with that meditative mind, and that gives you an ability to reprogram, right, through accessing these other sort of reserve of information that a lot of us, we don't really tap into except like children, right? So when we're dealing with, my childhood, why did my father abuse me? When we work with that complex concept, self and other, we can use the central system, right, to actually evolve beyond our boundaries so that we can start to even access, like a son, right? Access memory, might not even be our own memory, but memory of this planet or memory of other planets, who knows, that has the particular skill or tool on how to deal with that. Because I do feel like this Sachic record, this great library in this universe, there is tool, there is skill, there's information that's out there. We just need to know how to sense it, because let's say we can't through our intellectual, right? Or it's just not working. Maybe use your emotional, maybe use your primal, right? Sort of sensual system, right? Maybe get into the aura to receive that kind of memory. That'll give you the tool you need to resolve this complex concept. And when we talk about, trial and error, right? We want to work, we work with that creative mind to give us the agility to move past the boundary, move past the limitation, because everything about the expansion is about working through, right? It's like working through, and that will present to you all kinds of challenge, we'll say, right? With the Shiva, all kinds of challenge as you are expanding, right? As you're expanding, it will present you all kinds of challenge because you're doing something new, right? And when you really recognize that challenge from the broadening of the imagination, rather than this is so serious, so serious, so serious, so serious, you can actually really tap into a bigger receptive stance, right? Because we want to be receptive to right, wrong. We want to be receptive so that we can become more dynamic, right? That makes us more rich. There's more wealth in that, right? So we're gonna work with these different mudras in this particular sequence I have created for you all. So first, what we're gonna do is we're going to tune in using the mantra Ong, ONG, Namo, Gurudev, Namo.